안녕하십니까. 운동을 해야겠죠. 자, 오늘 주가 봤습니까, 여러분? 이 정도까지 떨어질지도 몰랐고, 이 정도까지 삼성전자 주가를 방어할지도 몰랐습니다. 개미분들 열심히 사고 있죠, 지금. 깜짝 놀랐어요. 거의 뭐 45,000원 가나 싶었는데, 와, 5만원으로 다시 복귀했죠. 대단합니다, 대단해. 와. 일단은 현재 미국이 유럽을 막았어요. 유럽은 지금 이제 퍼져서 전 지역이 지금 비상이고요. 이탈리아는 뭐 거의 뭐 우리나라보다 심각한 상황이 됐고요. 사망자나 확진자가 15,000명, 사망자가 1,000명. 이제 프랑스도 늘어나고 있고 미국도 이제 늘어나고 있고요. 다음 주에 우리나라가 금리 인하할 것 같고 미국도 뭐 추가 금리 인하하겠고요. 자, 3월 말이 지나고 4월 달이 가면은 이제 1분기 실적 발표가 나겠죠. 4월 말쯤 되려나요? 과연 저점은 어딜까요? 이 실적 발표가 나고 나면은 더욱더 큰 충격을 받을 것 같은데, 일단 CNN을 보면서 운동하겠습니다. 오늘은 팔굽혀펴기만 할 겁니다. 어제 턱걸이 했죠. 오늘 최대한 스트레칭 많이 하고 팔굽혀펴기를 하도록 하겠습니다.
Look at where we are relative to what's being experienced in Italy, which is analogous in terms of the sophistication of their healthcare, pretty close to us. And we really could be where they are, the modeling says, in about 2 weeks. That is a very frightening thought when you look at how stressed their infrastructure is right now, and the fact that 1 in 5 or so of their healthcare workers are out of the workforce. When you think about the bench that we have for both nurses, respiratory therapists, physicians, that is a blow that we really cannot afford to sustain. So I think that anything we can do right now in terms of social distancing is really important. The travel ban, on the other hand, to me is probably misguided, and also really the collateral damage is just not helping us economically or in terms of helping to get the word out. This is a virus that doesn't respect boundaries or anything
Or
like borders.
nationalities,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Dr. Gold,
everything.
yeah, Dr. Gold, here is the paradox. If social distancing is good medically, it is also anxiety producing for people because it's isolating. And people don't know how much to be isolating themselves right now. So mentally, emotionally, what's your biggest concern from the psychiatry point of view?
From the psychiatry point of view, I am worried about the social isolation. I'm worried about the anxiety. I'm really mostly worried about the anxiety. And I think it's clear that I'm not telling people not to be anxious. We all live with anxiety every day, whether you're giving a talk at work, whether you have to take a test. This is part of our daily lives. And right now, we just have to deal with the uncertainty and the anxiety of what's going on.
I don't think the human brain is cut out for this much uncertainty. I mean, I see the anxiety just around all sorts of people who call to ask me questions. I mean, neighbors, my doctor called to ask me questions about this. How are you suggesting that people cope with this?
Well, I really think that we're all in this together, and we're going to have to use a lot of kindness and a lot of patience. And the first thing we have to do is deal with the medical needs, right? The first thing we have to do is take care of our kids,
좀 하긴
get older
할게요.
people out of the workplace and home, make sure the kids are eating. First thing we need to do is take care of the medical piece, and then we have to take care of the mental health of our country. I mean, it's an imperative right now.
And we'll get to that in a second because I know you have some tips in terms of schedule and structure. But first, Dr. Marazzo, I just want to show you this coronavirus curve because I want you to walk us through this. So here are the number of cases. This has been put out by, I guess, The Economist. It's how we flatten the curve. Without protective measures, you can see that it spikes. That's the red there. With protective measures, it's a sort of more shallow mound there. What's interesting is it's the same amount of cases, okay? It's just about the length of time over which those cases are spread. Is that supposed to make us feel better?
Yeah, you expressed it actually and explained it very eloquently. I mean, the bottom line with this curve is that you essentially try to challenge the healthcare system with the same amount of cases over a longer period of time. So imagine your emergency room. You got per day 5 people coming in that may need to go to the intensive care unit and be put on a ventilator in that spread out curve.
여러분
In
사실
that elevated curve, you might have 30 to 50 people coming.
정말
And you can
사실은
imagine
내일도
chaos
쉬고
and
내일
the
모레
news
쉬거든요.
that
그 다음에 3일,
onrush of people
그 다음 월요일 날
really
야간
stresses
출근이에요.
the system with. So
시간이
the idea
많습니다.
is really to try to
그래서
give our infrastructure a break
아니,
and
너무
not
하시다.
break
오늘
it
너무
over time.
피곤해가지고
And this can be
지금 여기서
done.
제가
And I think
운동을
the
열심히
social distancing
해버리면 제
impact
몸이
that
되게
we're
피곤을
seeing
느낄 것 같아요.
might, in other countries at least, might be
진짜
able to
정말로.
help with that.
And Dr. Marazzo, can you just explain in terms of the social distancing, does that mean we should not go out to restaurants? Should we
일단
not
좀
see friends? Should we
해볼게요.
not have
진짜
them over
너무
to our
하기 싫은데.
houses? Can our kids not have
진짜
parties?
너무 하기
What level of social
너무
distancing
하기
do you
싫다.
as a doctor want to see?
I think that it's very important, first of all, to keep sick people away from healthy people. So remember, there are different levels of social distancing. So if you are sick, please do not mix with other people. We know this virus can be transmitted very easily based on the numbers we're seeing. The second thing is that, remember, social distancing works by reducing your personal space that you're sharing with people. So if you're in a very crowded place, like a basketball auditorium or something like that, and you're literally 6 to 3 inches away from somebody, that's going to be an at-risk situation. So minimizing that is why the mayor of New York, for example, has now imposed this regulation about dining out. So you can be 6 feet away from the people that you are eating with. So I think that's a reasonable approach.
Okay, that's very good to know. Okay, now back to the mental aspect of all of this, Dr. Gold. So socially distancing, isolating, your tips for people to get through these next however long weeks we have are stay on a schedule. What else?
I want everyone to stay on a schedule.
Why?
Because I've been working with some teenagers in Asia who are in this homeschooling, remote learning, and what I've noticed is that they're on no schedule. They do their classes, they sleep, they do their classes, they're getting depressed, they're getting isolated, they're getting anxious, and we want to avoid that here. So for the people that are really quarantined, obviously that's a different level of social distancing, right? We get that. But in terms of being at home with your kids over the next month, or we got to help each other out. Everyone has to get up at a certain time. You have to go to bed at a certain time. You have to eat meals at a regular time. If you're doing remote learning, it needs to kind of be as close to school as possible. If you have enough space in your apartment, you need to leave your bedroom to go into the kitchen to actually do your classes. You need to not sleep all the time. You need to have social connectedness. And this is when technology is great. If you can use a video conferencing to stay connected, kids are particularly good at this. They're very comfortable with this. But for older people as well, if your parents aren't set up for video conferencing and you can get them set up, absolutely do it. Because we need people to still be connected, even if they have to be, 6 feet away or in another place.
That's a great point. Social media can actually really help because you can see if you do FaceTime with somebody, with the grandparents or whatever, that actually helps lift the spirits. Dr. Gold, Dr. Marazzo, thank you very much for trying to walk us through this highly uncertain time. We really appreciate your expertise. John.
I say, I'm hanging on every word of these discussions because we're not just reporting this, we're living it. My kids are home for at least a month from school. I need answers in my life. I know everyone is looking for answers about how to get through this.
I think that there is, this morning, what I've learned is that there's a difference between self-quarantining and social distancing. And you don't have to be as extreme as I think sometimes we think that we have to stay locked in our house. No, if you're not sick, you don't need to do that, but you do need to be cautious.
All right, as we've been saying, millions of students this morning at home, not in the classroom. Schools closed. What's the impact on the kids? What's the impact on the teachers? That's next.
Welcome to our viewers on CNN International, because we've got breaking news on sports events in Europe being cancelled. Football, no less. We're going to bring in Alex Thomas because all the top English and European football has effectively been suspended, at least until next month.
That's right, Max. We're hearing that England's Premier League has confirmed what many of us have felt has been inevitable for certainly the last 24, 48 hours, and that is that there'll be no English Premier League football matches until April the 3rd. That's the next 3 weeks starting from today. And really that became inevitable once two major clubs in that competition, Arsenal and Chelsea, reported that members of their staff had the coronavirus, namely the Arsenal coach, Mikel Arteta, and as far as Chelsea are concerned, another big club and former Premier League champions, their talented teenage winger, Callum Hudson-Odoi. We now believe there are at least 7 English Premier League clubs reporting cases of coronavirus amongst their playing staff. So the Premier League, having been quite robust really and insisting things would carry on even if some games had to be played behind closed doors, or not even as early as Monday. Leicester City played with a full crowd on Monday night. They've now very quickly turned to suspending the league for the next 3 weeks. As far as European competitions concerned, the competitions run by UEFA, Europe's governing body. All 4 Champions League games next week are off. That's Juventus v Lyon. Juventus, for obvious reasons, due to host in Italy, which is in complete lockdown. Manchester City against Real Madrid, the Madrid squad in lockdown. Barcelona against Napoli, again, although it's in Spain. Napoli can't travel from Italy right now to Spain because flights have been cancelled. And Bayern v Chelsea. Chelsea, obviously, as we just reported, with a case of coronavirus, their entire squad is in isolation. La Liga, the main top division in Spain. You can see this the statement from UEFA about why they've taken that decision. La Liga, the top division in Spain, has also been suspended, which means that of the big 5 European leagues, Max, only the Bundesliga is still going ahead as planned, although they're playing their matches behind closed doors. And because of the actions now here in England, with the Premier League being suspended, the pressure is increasing on Germany to change their approach. Already signs of dissension, one player tweeting out how unhappy they are, which rather mirrors what we saw happen in Australia ahead of what was going to be the opening race of the Formula One season, with Lewis Hamilton, the reigning world champion, saying, "Why are we here? We shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be racing." And in the